What is creativity, and why is it important? To start off, creativity is the use of the imagination to actualize between inner experience and outer reality. It's the emergence of self-actualization, a part of understanding who you are and knowing thyself. You can use creativity to express your inner world fully and deeply with, in this case, art materials that ultimately bring it to your outer world. So, how do we reach this? Creativity can be expressed in the form of kinesthetics, using your senses, perceptions, emotions, thoughts, and symbols. Art therapists established a model called the ETC, or the Expressive Therapies Continuum. This is a model for art therapists to determine where their client is in terms of their creativity. It can show us where the disconnections lie, but also creativity can be enhanced using the ETC. The ETC is organized with the structural, analytic, and logistic expressions on the left, and the intuitive, emotional, and innovative expressions on the right. Kind of like what they say about left brain and right brain thinkers. Alright, allow me to quickly explain each of these in depth to gain better understanding. Kinesthetics are actions and movements that release psychic energy through motor behavior. On the other side of that spectrum is sensory. This is where the senses can be used to ground, soothe, meditate, bring stillness, and help the client be present in the moment. Perceptual, on the other hand, is the formal art aspects of what you perceive you're seeing, such as line, shapes, and color. For a client who is stuck in this element, you may see them being overly perfectionistic, paying excessive attention to order, showing lack of colors, and not being very expressive with their emotions in their artwork. Now, this is where affect comes in, which is another word for emotions. This is on the opposite side of the spectrum as perception. Affect is the expression of emotion or mood that can be represented in the artwork by things like color, vibrancy, types of lines, and abstraction. For example, jagged lines may show anxiousness, whereas straight lines are more calm. Cognitive expressions are thoughts and patterns of conscious awareness. This is where you'll see logic and structurization of those thoughts. And lastly, there's symbolic, where figures and representations are made to symbolize personal information and underlying thoughts and feelings in a less intrusive way. So, creativity is what helps us move from these different aspects of expression like I mentioned earlier. You may stick to one of these ways, you could alternate between a few, or you can use all of them at once. If you seem to be sticking to one expressive form, you will not reach the creative level in this case. You would be disconnected from all the other ways. Creativity is what it takes to move through the expressive continuum by making connections. Allow me to provide you with a scenario of what that would look like. Marie came to therapy for her anxiety and overwhelming tendency to worry and think too far ahead into the future. So in her art therapy session, her therapist gave her a projective to draw a mandala with colorful markers. She used so many colors, shapes, and designs to create her mandala. Upon reflection, Marie realized that the mandala was a symbol for her internal thoughts, and how her thoughts can sometimes branch out and grow larger and larger until they become unmanageable. This example is how Marie moved from the cognitive level to the symbolic level. This made Marie feel very sad and defeated. Now she's jumped to affect. So her therapist prompted Marie to talk about the formal elements in her drawing. She asked her what colors she used, the shapes, and to describe the lines to her. Now Marie can see that this is an external piece of who she is. She can see it, she can hold it in her hand because it's external and now a part of the outside world. This helped her feel grounded and in the moment. Marie just moved from perceptual to sensory. Now, do you remember what I said earlier about how getting disconnected from the other aspects keeps you from reaching the creative level? Well, there is such thing as facilitating creativity. It all depends on the art materials, what the art activity is, and how the art activity is administered. This is what we call the MDV, or the media dimension variables. Fluid to restrictive media is correlated with ease of control. Some art materials are naturally more fluid or restrictive. In jest, so are people. Restrictive media like markers or pens are easier to control than fluid materials like paints and watercolors. The art medium can either strengthen or loosen the person's authority for control, organization, and detail in their artwork. The choice of the art material should not be taken lightly and is very important for reflecting who the client is and what they need help with. Simple to complex refers to the number of steps or preparation of the materials or the art activity. This spectrum relates to the stress levels, patience, focus, energy, and problem-solving ability in the client. For example, if you had a client who gets irritated easily, you would want to pick a simple medium and a simple task for them to complete. Lastly, structured to unstructured refers to the boundaries addressed to the client to complete a given task. This basically means how much freedom is the client given to create. Or is it more specific? Do they need structure? An example of this would be a step-by-step administered activity versus an open studio. This relates with cognitive functioning. So, because Marie was stuck in the cognitive expression when she came to therapy, her therapist gave her a task that was simple with media that was quite restrictive. The task's boundaries were not too strict, but also not too open. This gave Marie some structure and freedom to discover her capabilities on her own terms.